Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
Hello, everybody, and we know how hot the transfer portal is. Ton of big-time players in there. Got another one we're dropping today, a guy that's going to play in the NFL, I promise you. I'm going to get to him in 1 second, but first I want to holler at our people at betonline.ag. Head over there today. Online casinos always open. Y'all know the deal, whether it's NASCAR, Major League Baseball, golf, UFC, whatever they're playing, anywhere, they're going to have the spread for it. That's betonline.ag. The sign-up bonuses are unreal. Whether you want parlays, props, they've got all of it. Go over there and sign up. They play the Sharps too. It's betonline.ag. Head over there today and tell them that Jboy sent you. But as we're getting back into the recruiting mode, as everything's kind of opening up now, last year we had a recruiting roundup that's coming back as well. Very excited to bring on a guy kind of prefaced a little bit in the transfer portal from Vanderbilt, a future NFL star at safety, a guy that can do a lot of different things, can defend the run, can defend the pass. That's what makes him so popular. And he's also smart enough to get into Vanderbilt, so he's obviously smarter than a lot of people listening and including myself doing this interview. Mr. Donovan Kaufman. Donovan, man, what is up? I really appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate you for having me, man.
Definitely. Well, I know it's got to be an exciting time. And I want to start because when I watch your game, and we'll get to the schools and recruiting in a second, your versatility really stands out to me. You're a guy that can creep up and get downhill, especially if you got a tight end over you and y'all are in zone and can affect the run. But you're also flexible enough in your hips. You got good change of direction. You've got good rebound speed, what I call it, to defend the pass. What is it about your game and playing that position that makes you such a threat, Donovan? Because you can do so many things.
I get that question a lot, man. All I'm gonna say is that I just love football. I started off playing offense my whole life.
Really?
To high school, yeah. I actually played quarterback and running back. Then when I got to high school, they switched me to defense. But when I was younger, I was strictly quarterback, ain't play no defense, none of that. I was a quarterback, so I couldn't play all the positions. I always could, but I was a quarterback. So. But then I got a little bit older, probably 9 and 10. Then they started letting me carry the rock a little bit. And it was like, damn, this dude can play running back.
Yeah.
And then, I was still kind of short, so probably wasn't going to go far at quarterback at the next level, but I could play running back. But then I got to high school, and it was like, nah, you're a DB. And I was like, oh, well. I didn't like it. I still don't like it to this day. I don't really like defense. I'll tell you that right now.
Really? So as good as you are on defense, let me ask you this. If they flipped you over to running back right now, you go for 1,000 this year?
Of course. 100%.
I love the confidence.
No doubt about it at all. I promise you.
Definitely. Well, so in the return game too, is that something that you think you can, because I watch your tape, Donovan, and I can see what you're saying because you got wiggle, and that's what I'm talking about with hip flexibility. So offense is still your favorite right now if you had to pick.
Yeah, but I wouldn't switch over to offense now because I'm starting to I don't like playing defense, but I know I have a better future in defense.
Yeah.
But that kick return and punt return, that's why I like doing it because I get to have the ball in my hand.
There you go. And you're good. I mean, shoot. And as athletic as you are, and Donovan too, I want to talk about before we get to the schools, you guys' ability, and you played for Derek Mason. You have that connection there. And to play for him, you got to understand what you're seeing. And from your recognition, whether it's formationally, whether it's being able to understand what they're going to give you out of trips, what they're going to give you out of trade, can you talk about the cerebral part of the defense and playing safety and being able to diagnose stuff? Because you got to be able to stop the run and stop the pass. How mentally prepared are you in the game of football? Because you wouldn't be this far if you didn't know what you were seeing.
See, that's the thing. I guess I'm mentally prepared, but I don't know. I don't know if I watch film just like everybody else. I think by me playing offense all that time and being a quarterback, because I was a decent quarterback, I think that really helped me on the defensive side. So that's probably why, because I watch film, I watch players, I study, I do everything else that everybody else does, but I don't know. I'm not impressed with myself, put it like that.
Well, I mean, that's why you're always hungry and why you're, because again, we always say, we're never there, we're never there, we're never there. And you keep working and keep working. And that's how you have a long career in the NFL. And Donovan, now that you've entered the transfer portal, and again, you're a guy with your abilities. I'm sure right when that name hit the portal, like I had Tony Farron here the other day, I'm sure the phone started blowing up. How have you approached this process of going back in the portal? Because again, in today's game, with the ability to do that, you've played in the SEC, you know what it takes. What are some things you're looking at the next school you pick? What do they have to have?
For one, it just have to be the right situation for me. So you have to have a need for safety. I don't mind coming in fighting for a spot because I'm gonna have to do that regardless of where I go.
Yeah.
But obviously, you have to have a need for safety. I have to feel comfortable there. The scheme has to fit. Like I want to still play nickel, play safety. Be a nickel safety. I don't want to come off the field at all.
I feel that.
And just really just the right fit all around for me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Again, it's like a puzzle. You're trying to put the pieces together, and then hopefully at the end you have the picture you want. And Donovan, again, there's been people talking about some schools, obviously, that have offered you and that are very interested. Who are some schools right now, if you don't mind, that are kind of standing out to you? Because again, I know you're going to take your time probably with this process a little bit, because I'm sure a lot of it's coming pretty fast.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of schools that
I bet
reached out. Power 5, you got a couple FCS also, but really right now it's out of Auburn, Texas, and FSU.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask you, because again, number one, that's a hell of a list of schools to be able to pick from in any sport, let alone football. And I want to start with Florida State. Obviously, Coach Norvell there. What kind of stands out with you about what they're doing in Tallahassee?
I've been knowing them for a while. When I was in high school, when he was at Memphis, he recruited me. And then I wound up not choosing Memphis, and as soon as he got to Florida State, I was the first offer that he made. So I've been knowing them for a while. I actually took OV to Florida State and Memphis. So so I know them very well.
Yeah. So past relationship basically is carrying on that one there. Then you look at Texas, hiring Steve Sarkisian, trying to get back to where, you think Texas would be and where they should be with the amount of population, the amount of resources they have. But how was it? I know you recently went out there to Austin, correct?
No.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm confusing. With Coach Sark, is there a previous relationship there with him, or was it kind of out of the blue when they called you?
No, I know a couple of people on their staff. It's not
okay. Okay.
I know him now, but I know a couple guys was at Vandy from that staff. Jason Groom.
That's right.
Coach Q, Taylor Sorrells, Cartier Hankton. He coached me in high school. So I know a couple people on that staff also. And I love, Austin is a huge city. They love football. That's one thing that I will say. I am looking for my next school that they have to love football. And all these schools, they love football.
Yeah, without a doubt. No, you couldn't really go wrong with any of them. And you talk about previous relationships. I mean, Derek Mason, former head coach at Vanderbilt, obviously a guy that you're very familiar with, takes the DC job at Auburn, and Auburn's in there. What is it about Coach Mason that you like? And does that, obviously every school has an advantage in some way, fashion, or the other, but is that one of the main things that led you to talking to Auburn?
I always liked Auburn. I never was they didn't recruit me before I was in high school, but I always said I watched the games and I'd be like, man, Auburn keep a decent little team, Yeah. So I always looked at them that's a nice little program, you know. So then when he went over there, it just made it even much better. I mean, it's the SEC still. I mean, obviously I know him. B. Lewis over there.
Yep.
And I talked to Coach Harson. First day I was in the portal, they called me.
Really? How's Coach Harson? How's he on the phone?
He's a good dude. He seemed like somebody that I could get along with, that I wouldn't mind playing for.
Yeah. Well, again, that's kind of what I hear from everybody. And you're in such a good position, Don, and be able to, look at those three. And like you said, there's some others that are talking to you. But timeline, everybody talks about decisions, and again, there's no set way to do it. Some guys want to do it early, some guys want to not drag it out, but take even more time and get more info. Do you have a timeline in your head? I know I've heard middle of May, I've heard end of May, but coming straight from your mouth, do you have a time set, or are you just going to pop when it's right?
Yeah, I want to be middle, maybe because I do want to be in school in June. So
Yeah.
basically starting off like I'm a freshman. I want to be back up there like in June. So
yeah. And you get into the routine that way as well and go ahead and get acclimated and stuff like that to your new place. And my last question for you, Donovan, but before I let you go, man, I really appreciate you taking some time. Donovan Coffin, I don't want to say safety Donovan Coffin because you can play nickel hell. They can put you at running back and you can play running back like you mentioned earlier and corner, all that stuff. And that's what happens when you're an elite athlete. But playing in the SEC at Vanderbilt, you know what it's about. You turn on the TV, see the NFL draft, you see all these players going straight from the SEC to the NFL. You got one SEC team in that group that you mentioned. Is it really important for you to stay in the SEC, or does it really not matter now that you've been in it?
I kind of want to because honestly, like you said, all looking at everything the draft recently,
it is what it is.
My dad, he was looking at, he was like, damn, he said like 14 out of 32 of the first rounders like went SEC.
It's wild.
I'm like playing in this. I'm like, bro, nobody I played like really. I only played 2 games though, so but like nobody I played really stood out. Like my first game, the Texas A&M game, I was nervous over the fact that I was playing in an SEC game and it was on national television. I wasn't like the players. Only thing difference is that they bigger. Like that's it. They just way bigger. But the game speed, all that is the same. It's just like, I don't know. It wasn't, I was more in my head over the fact that I'm going to play in the SEC because all my life, I always thought that I wasn't like playing talent because how easy football was for me. So I always felt like I was never like actually playing competition. Then I would look around and say, well, the dudes I'm playing against are going to some of these same schools. So I was like, okay, well, something got to shake. Then I was like, I know once I get to the SEC. Then I got to the SEC, and it was like, okay, it's not that different.
Yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
For sure. And that has to be a really freeing feeling. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. And Donovan, man, you know, I'm going to leave you with this, and I'm going to let you talk. Wherever you decide to go at the end of the day, what is that school getting? We know the player Donovan Kaufman, how good of a football player you are, but what kind of a worker is Donovan Kaufman? What type of guy off the field is Donovan Kaufman? Because we all know how important the stuff off the field, how it translates to on the field, a lot more than people think.
I mean, you're going to get the same person on and off the field. I work hard on the field, off the field, in the classroom. It don't matter. I'm a people's person. I'm a leader. You're definitely going to get somebody that's going to come in, work hard, push everybody else to work hard every day. Like at the end of the day, I'm trying to win a natty. Like I'm not just settling for winning the conference. Like I want to play the last game of the season. So you getting somebody that's willing to push the program to the next level.
Definitely. And again, that's why you got so many suitors, man. And I know you're going to fit right in and keep doing your thing. Donovan, I really appreciate it, brother. Good luck to you. Going to keep up with you, man. I know me and you will talk via Twitter, whatever. But again, man, good luck to you, and excited to see where you end up.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Hey, where can everybody follow you on social media as well? What's your handle?
Instagram and Twitter is the same thing. Sosa Kaufman, SOSAKAUFMAN, no space.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say. Everybody loves Sosa. Appreciate it, Donovan. Be safe out there too, man. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're cranking the recruiting back up. Y'all know how we do it at the Jboy Show. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show with Donovan Kaufman, super safety / nickel / running back, but don't tell anybody. And Jboy's gone. Hello. Welcome in. Very excited to re-unveil now that we're going to be able to have visits, and obviously recruiting never ends, but it's really starting to beef up here heading to the summer. We're bringing back the Recruiting Roundup. Yes, we're bringing it back every Wednesday, kind of scanning around the SEC. Sometimes we'll take it team by team. Sometimes we'll scope the whole thing, talking about the top prospects. And very excited to be joined by Cole Pinkston today. And I'm going to get to him, Pink's perspective, a huge part we just added to the Jboy Show, a brand new ranking system, which I think is phenomenal. But first, as usual, we got to give a shout out to betonline.ag. Head over there today. The online casino is always open. The sign-up bonuses are the best that you're going to find, whether it's teasers, pleasers, props, straight up, however you get down. Head to betonline.ag and tell them that Jboy sent you. But Cole Pinkston, good buddy of the show, new member of the Jboy Show Network's got a brand new ranking systems, doing a really good job too, analyzing recruits from around the SEC, not just at Auburn, but we're going to talk some Auburn recruiting. But first, Cole, man, what's up? Welcome to it.
What's up, Jake? I appreciate you having me back on, brother.
Hey, definitely, man. And again, I want to start out with this ranking system, this recruiting ranking system. And before we even get into that, though, I talk a little about your background, the coaching you've done at the collegiate level that's allowed you to be able to analyze these recruits. It's something that you did. We've both done. You kind of understand how it goes. But what kind of inspired you to do this? And talk a little bit about your ranking system.
Yeah, man. Well, I played a little ball, played a little college ball, and then was a grad assistant coach and worked with different positions, worked with linebackers, worked with offensive line, and did a lot of film work. I mean,
Yeah.
Constant 24/7 film work, so always looking at film, always looking at different guys and how they were doing in practice and evaluating that. And that kind of is what sparked my idea for doing that for Auburn recruiting. Once I got to where I wasn't coaching anymore, really, and was still had that itch, to
It's in your blood.
Yeah, you can't leave it behind,
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I just did it on my own for a little while, and then I started putting it out there on Twitter, and it got a lot of attention, and I trust my eyes with things, and I figured after breaking down a bunch of games and doing that on different websites and showing that to people, I think people started to realize that, I could break down what was going on in game film and highlights, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's been very, very popular on social media. Obviously, we're putting it now at the jboyshow.com where people can find the articles you write, not only breaking down recruits, but also analysis, scheme analysis, something that we're going to lean heavy on, obviously, going into the fall from a whole SEC perspective and talking ball. But, Cole, with this ranking system, kind of explain it to people, kind of what goes into it, because you have categories and you rank them, I believe, out of 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of go down your ranking system and how you evaluate, because you do take time. And I mean, your database is full of players right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I spend a lot of time putting, the 4 categories together and the rating number and the star rating with every player. It takes a while. And that's why, I only put out 2 or 3 a day. We're working on building a whole database for the entire 2022-23 class and so forth. But yeah, the 4 categories, I think, explain everything about the player as much as you can anyway, without having to put an entire breakdown out there, which, we do that too. But just for the rating purposes, we got the 4 categories. We got size and frame. That's always a big thing with recruiting. Raw athleticism. You have your football IQ. You have your SEC readiness as well. I get a lot of questions about the football IQ. I consider that, how does he understand his position? How does he, if he's an offensive lineman, does he attack with his hands? Is his pass set clean? Does he use his feet and his hips well? That kind
of thing. Is he a waist spender? It's the question we always ask.
Yeah, right. And do they know how to do it? Do they show an understanding of that? That's what goes into the football IQ, and that's a big one. Guys who know what they're doing, they play early.
Yeah, they do. And especially now with the early enrollees. But, my favorite looking at it's the SEC readiness, category. Because again, from an audience perspective, you're trying to keep up with your team. You want to know, what signees or what commitments have a chance to come in and play that next year. Because we all know the most popular guys, the new true freshman, blue chip guy. But I think it gives a different perspective there for it being Pink's perspective. And I think that's why it's caught on. And again, it's not just Auburn guys. I mean, you've done pretty much everybody. I mean, if you're a Georgia fan, Florida fan, and it's great stuff, and the breakdowns are fantastic as well too, Cole. And it's something we're going to keep building and keep branching out. And now that recruiting has kind of come back full swing, and not that it ever goes away, but without the visits, I mean, last year was really weird. Just not been. You look at a team like Auburn, where that's huge when it comes down to signing guys and being able to have that on-campus feel and something that they need back. But looking right now, and let's start with Auburn, Cole. Looking at this Auburn class, there's been some people on the side of the fence saying they wanted more from Harson early. Why is he not getting more 4-star commitments and 5-star commitments? And that stuff comes. You're trying to build something from the ground up, and you got to go win games, number one. But when you look at this class, you look at Powell Gordon, you look at Jarrell Stinson, and you look at Holden Gariner. What do you think so far about the class and really Brian Harson and the staff's approach to recruiting now that they've taken over?
Well, first of all, speaking of Holden Gariner, quarterbacks don't wait very long anymore to get in class. They get in their sophomore, junior years, Garner was a guy that was still kind of out there. By the time Harson took over, a lot of the 2022 recruiting class is already being worked on, has been worked on for years already. So you see a guy out there floating like Holden Garner, who is an extremely talented young quarterback with an arm. He's got the arm talent. He can make all the throws. He can put the trajectory on the ball when he needs to lob it over, or when he needs to lay it up and drop it in the bucket, or if he needs to beam it over to a slant or a crossing route in the middle. He's got all of that. He's not mobile. He doesn't run a lot. He's a pocket guy. He can move in the pocket really well, and that's an underrated thing too. Being able to move and extend plays inside the pocket. Yeah. So I think that was an excellent evaluation by Brian Harson and the new staff. And they jumped on that one and got him on board quick. And he's helping to recruit now. So you have an extra recruiter, and it always helps to have a guy that's a quarterback and a popular guy who's at the camps and 7-on-7s, recruiting receivers and DBs and whoever else is there.
Yeah. So you need that North Star in recruiting nowadays. I mean, you look at Vanderbilt from Georgia. It's amazing how these quarterbacks commit early and then bring guys with them. You look at Powell Gordon, Jarrell Stinson, we know a speed guy, a guy that can do multiple things. He's projected a few different places in college that he could play. You just can't teach that type of speed, and it's right down the road in Opelika. But also, Powell Gordon's right down the road at Auburn High School. And you can tell one thing I think that, when you're at a place like Boise State or you're at a smaller place, being able to evaluate, project, and then develop talent. Do you think Brian Harson's taken that same mindset to Auburn of finding guys that, right now may not be the 5-star guys, the high 4-star guys, but guys he can see that can develop down the road, maybe a hidden gem? And do you think that's going to work at Auburn early? Or do you just got to shoot for the stars and hope you hit the moon?
Yeah, well, really the formula for success at Auburn has never been land all the 5 stars, and all
true.
Been true for Auburn. They've always been a blue collar, land a guy that has a lot of character and a lot of talent and develop them into a monster player. It's happened in all the history of Auburn. We've had big fish that we've gotten, but the meat of the team is always those, sometimes developmental or sometimes just slept on guys. It just happens like that. Underdogs. We've got the underdog mentality at Auburn. That's just how it goes. Yeah. So, Powell Gordon right now is in that category because he's rated by most as a 3-star, and really when Auburn offered, nobody knew who he was, and the recruiting services didn't put much emphasis on him and his rating, and sometimes that matters, sometimes it doesn't. I looked at him and thought, wow, this guy comes screaming off the edge every play. Mm-hmm. He's extremely fast off the ball. He's quick twitch. He's really good in pursuit. He makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. In the state championship game against Thompson, which is a national power. He was just disruptive the entire game. They couldn't do anything. They didn't. And then it ended up being that they came back and won. But the entire game was controlled by Powell Gordon.
Yeah, and he's got nice moxie in the box. He's able to bend. He's a guy that I wouldn't surprise to see turn into an Edens or somebody like that may not have been the most heralded recruit, guy that comes in, works, gets his body right, understands the game, and is just solid. Now, will he ever be an elite pass rusher? I don't know. But you don't have to have that out of that guy. And I think he can project at a few different places. A guy, he can play buck. He can play strong side if he gains enough weight. So there's multiple things he can do. And I think he can be a two-way guy as well, pass rush and against the run. But Cole, looking at some guys that are still out there, Tony Fair, we're dropping this on Wednesday. He commits. It's looking like Auburn. We had him on the show. He dropped his top 3. Can you talk about how big that is for that D-line? After losing, Hardy and Handy and having to get some depth there, even though there is some talented bodies along the defensive line. And then you got a guy like Donovan Kaufman, the safety transfer from Vandy. Both of these guys are projected NFL guys. Kaufman, to me, and it's funny, in the interview we released, he really doesn't even still like to play defense, but he's a projected NFL player on defense. It's just funny how that works out. But are those two guys you can see Auburn landing through the portal? And does that pretty much shore up the defense in your eyes if they could land those two?
Yeah. I think I think Auburn's got a really good chance to get both of them, which is huge because, you lose a little bit of depth with the transfers here. You don't lose a huge piece. You have guys that are developmental guys, and we're going to work into some rotational spots, and you got to have stuff like that. But I think Tony Fair and Kaufman both are going to come in and be more than rotational pieces. Tony Fair is going to fit right in at that nose guard position. And even a guy that's a veteran like Truesdale, he might be challenged for some snaps.
He's got to play better. I mean, we got to be honest. He's got to play better than he did last year.
Right. And, he's inconsistent. He'll make a good play, and then the next play he's getting rolled off the ball like he's on skates. Yeah. So you have to have a guy that's consistent in the middle to be able to stop the run, which is huge these days because it's starting to flip back towards everything's, the RPO game and the passing game. You have to have a guy in the middle that can control the run game, because if you can't, then who would stop running it against you, know? And that happened to Auburn a lot last year. We saw that happen in the Ole Miss game when you think Lane Kiffin's going to throw it all over you. Well, he runs for 250, 300 yards on you because you can't stop.
Yeah, Tennessee just ran insert the whole game. I can't believe they threw it at the end. They ran insert the whole game, basically, right at the interior of that defensive line. And me and you were talking about social media plug and play. What does that mean? That's a guy that can come in and can play the nose, can play the zero in your 3-down look, especially when you want to bring pressure and you feel good about it. He's a guy that can play shade in your 4-down. He's a guy that could probably play 3-tech. And you feel fine about it. So he does give you some depth across that defensive line. I'm sure Derek Mason added another piece, a veteran piece. He's only got 1 year to play. He's had experience. He's played on a good defense. And that interview with him, I thought he was pretty transparent in who he is as a player. And then you look at Donovan Kaufman, a guy that if he comes to Auburn, and I think it's a great point, Cole, you bring up, it's not going to be a rotational piece. I think they're going to plug him in at safety next to Smoke, move Tennyson down to nickel, where I think he's more comfortable, especially in a coverage standpoint. And you've really got to feel good when you look at that Auburn back end. You had Jalen Simpson in there. Drayshawn Miller's the guy we probably haven't talked about enough. So to me, I feel like you get those two guys, pencil it in for the defense. You're in a really good spot, really from the front to the back. And you've got a nice little mix of youth as well up front. You look at guys like Colby Wooden that made a big impact last year, Zykevious Walker. You go down the list, some of the JUCO guys, Dre Butler, for example, that can really provide depth, because we know that's what wins in this league. But, Cole, some other guys that Auburn seems to lead for, or that are in a really good spot. Quinshon Judkins, the 4-star running back out of Pike. Some have a 3, some have a 4, however you want to put it. To me, the kid's a stud. I think Auburn's in a really good spot. Want your evaluation of him. And then Emory Floyd as well. A lot of Auburn momentum for him. And those would be 2 big gets for Brian Harson to get in the boat before summer.
Yeah. Judkins, for me, he's a no-brainer 4-star. I just don't see it any other way. He's got the moves. He's got the size. He's already 200-plus pounds. I've seen him play in person about 3 or 4 times now. The guy is electric. He's every time he touches the ball, which, by the way, I don't know if you've watched him, a lot of what they do is direct snap.
Yep.
Most of his fights do the direct snap. They want the ball in his hands every play. That's, and they got athletes all over the field, so that says something. They love to get it in his hands, and he is, what he does that kind of reminds me of, and let me be clear, I'm not comparing him to Tank Bigsby. But
Good preface.
You got to be careful with that kind of thing. But, Tank Bigsby can make a cut and get north in the cut while still ground and still, accelerating. That's what Judkins, and he's got the same build as well. I don't know if he's that kind of back. We'll see. But right now he's got the ability to do that on the level he's on, and I think it's impressive. He's also a tough runner. He runs through contact, got great hands out of the backfield. They throw the little swing pass and screens to him constantly. So he's had a lot of work doing that. And he showed out at some of these camps that he's attended. And I just think he's a complete back that Auburn jump on it and get that one early.
Yeah, and you look at his body type. I mean, he's a guy that'll have a chance to play early. And you talk about his ability to cut. And I don't want to pick on Sean Shivers, because Sean Shivers does some things really well. But the difference between Tank and Sean Shivers, other than size, is cutting ability and how fast they're able to cut. Tank Bigsby doesn't have to hit the brakes on both wheels to cut. He can put his foot in the ground and get north. Judkins is the same way at that size. Sean kind of has to hit the brakes, the double brake a little bit before he cuts, and you can see that costs him sometimes. But again, he does things a lot better than other guys. But I love Judkins. I think he's a guy that's going to be in the boat before sooner or later. Tell me a little bit about Emory Floyd. For some reason, I'm struggling with that name, Emory Floyd. And then I want to talk a couple O linemen before you get out of here, and we're going to continue to bring you back on, obviously, every Wednesday. But just looking at Emory Floyd, do you think he's a guy that can pull the trigger soon for Auburn? Kind of who is he, and do you think he's a guy that's going to join the team soon?
Yeah, I think he's probably the next guy that commits to Auburn, maybe, unless something crazy happens. I think he probably will come on his visit and either commit there or commit soon after. Mm-hmm. He's a guy from Georgia who I think runs track and is one of the fastest guys there as well. You gotta love his speed. His speed and that's one of your uncoachable things. That's your raw athleticism category. You have to take guys like that. And he's also close to 6'1", 6'2". I mean, you make something out of somebody like that. And you talk about Harson being a developmental guy and an evaluator of talent and a guy who can see, 4 years down the road, he can see a guy and say, this guy's going to be something if he comes to me.
Yeah. And
I can mold him into the player that I want him to be because he has these attributes. Yeah. And Emory was that guy. Right now, he's a little raw, sometimes he's not as physical as I want him to be in tackling or just in man coverage in general with his hands and knocking guys off the routes. But what he is, he's probably got the best recovery speed I've seen.
He does.
He can keep up with any receiver in man coverage. He reminds me a lot of Nehemiah Pritchett coming out of high school.
I like that comp.
Pritchett was, he's probably put on 20 pounds since he's been at Auburn. He was a smaller guy. Not a lot of people gave him any looks. I think Emory Floyd is really in the same mold as him.
Yeah, and I think once he gets in that college weight room and they get him a little stronger, he'll probably be a little more confident in jamming at the line and being physical, because you got to put your hands on guys in this league. Free releases, and again, you're playing zone, it's one thing, but if you're going to play man and press, and you're giving free releases or you're afraid to jam, that's free money for the offense. They might as well be throwing on air, especially as talented as these guys are. And I think he's a guy that comes in. The Pritchett comp, I think, is a really good one. Gets a redshirt year, gets his body right, gets in the playbook, gets a little confidence. And I think you could start seeing some green shoots come from him as a redshirt freshman. But, Cole, listen, we can talk about all these DBs. We can even talk D-line. The biggest hole right now at Auburn's roster is offensive line. We know that. I've talked about that on this show a million times. You kind of look at the way the roster is structured. You got a ton of guys in that junior class, not a ton of tackles. And you can see the amount of offers that Auburn has thrown out to 2022 tackles, 2023, even all the way into 2024. And that's something they're going to have to beef up. And you got to develop guys. You can't just rely on the grad transfer market. You can't just rely on junior college for tackles, because that's how you get your roster upside down. And that was really one of the downfalls of Gus Malzahn, even though, that is in the past. And I don't want to bring that up too much. But you look at the way they're attacking the offensive line class. I know people want commitments and stuff like that. But when you have a new staff, it takes time to form these relationships. But I think they sit in a great spot for Easton Harris, the tackle out of Beauregard, who I think is an NFL player down the road. We have a prediction out for him to Auburn, like we do with Tony Fair and Donovan Kaufman and Quinshon Judkins, actually, as a matter of fact. But when you look at Easton, he's a guy, I think, if he can come in, continue to increase his flexibility, may have a chance for some early PT and could be a big momentum getter, especially get another guy from the backyard. That would make Auburn, Opelika, and Beauregard for Brian Harson, the old hat trick there in the 3-3-4.
Yeah. Funny thing about Harris, he's from Beauregard High School. I saw them play about a year ago now. I think he was a sophomore. I think the first play they ran was like a toss or an outside zone play or something. He's that tackle on the play side. Mm-hmm. He takes off down the field after a safety, and I'm thinking, this guy, is he a tight end? Is he a receiver? No, okay. He's down the field like a tight end or receiver. The guy probably weighed 275 at the time.
That'll get you some offers right there.
Yeah, I mean, he's been getting looked at for a while. They knew he would blossom into a guy that can fill out and be a left tackle in college. Probably he can play either one, but I think he's suited for left tackle just because of the athleticism. I mean, it just pops on the film when you turn it on. And I think he's closer to 290, 295 now. I think he posted a picture on Twitter of being up to 290. So there you go. He's already filling out going into senior year. So he's a guy that I think is a top 5 you must get if you're Auburn. If you're Brian Harson, you got to get him. Yeah. He's a guy. I mean, you look at the roster right now, you got a lot of guards. That's just the way it is. We've heard that a lot, but it's true. You have guys that are playing tackle right now who could be NFL guards.
Yeah, Prodarius Ham. Sorry, I had something in my throat.
Excellent pick there. If you move him down to guard, he's being talked about as one of the better guards in the SEC.
I agree 100%. I don't think it's fair to ask, and by fair, I mean, not that he can't do it, but having to stay in front of some of these guys in the SEC for 5-6 snaps in a row out there at tackle, it's really, not his game having to pass that, and he's still able to do it, which in reality is probably going to help him when it comes down to the NFL. It's going to be a lot easier to slide in there to guard. You have less space to work with on the pass rush. But 2 more real quick. We're here with Cole Pinkston from Pink's Perspective. Y'all make sure y'all follow him on Twitter, everywhere he is on social media. I'm going to get him to drop that. And also you can head to the jboyshow.com here shortly and be able to find all of his stuff. It's great stuff, from the recruiting ranking system to the run game analysis. Me as a defensive guy, I love getting down in the nitty gritty, talking about some gap scheme and some zone scheme. But you look at Riley Quick, another 4-star offensive tackle. His brother Pierce plays for Alabama, but Auburn really feels good about where they're at. I think it's more down to, is he going to choose baseball or football? Will he do both? I'm not sure, but I think Auburn sits in a good spot. And also Dane Shore, who, while he may not have Auburn in his final group of schools, I would not count Auburn all the way out there. At least that's what a little birdie's telling me.
I would agree with that. I will echo that and say that I would not count Auburn out there yet. Dane Shore is a guy that nobody's really been able to see what his development and his growth has been, because you only have sophomore film on him. And that's been sort of why Auburn slow played him. You have a new coach that comes in and he's trying to learn people, and he wants to see people who he wants to see the latest from them. And he doesn't really have that, and that's hurt him. But other schools have seen him and they say, you know what, that doesn't matter. And I think Auburn's starting to join that party as well, because he's such a big guy and he moves. He's different than Easton Harris. And let me explain that. Like I said, Easton Harris was running down the field like a gazelle, right? This guy's not going to do that. He's quicker in his feet. His steps are really good. Yeah. He can get on a quicker edge rusher, or a guy that you would think would be quicker. Dane Shore's the guy that can get out there and make that happen and not allow, edge pressure, because his feet are so quick and his pass set's nice. And he's 320, 330 pounds at 7. So that's a can't miss guy too, in my opinion. I think Auburn's gonna regret waiting so long if they don't land him, but they will have a shot in the end. I think we'll see how that plays out. And then who was the other one you mentioned?
Talking about Riley Quick,
Riley Quick. Yeah, I don't know. He's a really excellent baseball pitcher as well, which is sort of unique for a guy his size. Yeah. So he's getting a lot of looks from the pro scouts in baseball, as well as just going to play baseball in college. He's got a lot of options on the table right now. I think Auburn's, probably a big landing spot for him. I think I don't know who the number 2 would be. Actually, I think on his mind the most right now. That could always change. But for right now, I like Auburn's chances, and he's another guy kind of like Harris who can run and get out in space and block people and track down a safety or a corner and square them up and block them and make plays, bring big plays like that. Sort of small right now. I think he's in the, for tackle, he's sort of small. I think he's in the 265, 270 range, but the frame is excellent. That's exactly what you want. And he can get up to 290 quickly.
Yeah.
And, just another great athlete who could also play defense. Don't know if he's going to be an offensive lineman. He could be either one. He's versatile enough to do both.
Yeah, I love the way his game projects. And listen, if he chooses pro baseball, when you're throwing the ball as fast as he is on the mound, you can understand it. But if he does choose college, I really think Auburn is in a good spot. And it's a great point you make. I mean, he is pretty versatile. We talk about how, Easton Harris moves and all this stuff. But to me, Riley Quick may be the most versatile out of all 3 of them when it comes down to it, especially once he adds weight. And, to go back to Dane Shore, you know, to me, looking at Auburn's roster, and again, I'm not in there. I'm not in the war room going through the numbers to know exactly the health of every player. But it surprised me that Auburn kind of slow played Dane a little bit because you need numbers. You know what I'm saying? You can almost afford with the way the roster is going to be when you have the mass exodus, especially after this season of tackles. I mean, you almost feel like you got to take a chance on that guy. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think they're still in a really good spot. But Cole, man, great stuff. Going to get you back on as we continue to put out these recruiting roundups. Excited to bring it back. It kind of whispers we're getting closer to the season as well. Going to get some other perspectives from different SEC schools too as we keep roping around. I want to turn this into a round table eventually every Wednesday and have guys talk about different prospects, give their evaluations. But Cole, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, man. The ranking system's fantastic, and where they can follow you because it's great stuff and you're only getting bigger.
I appreciate it, brother. Twitter, Coach Pink 7259 is my Twitter handle. I'm putting out new ratings every day, and I use the word rating, you know, because where I think the other ranking systems, they do a ranking first, where they say this guy's ahead of this guy, and then they give him a number. I go for the number first, and then I make a ranking afterwards. I think that's important because, you know, you get a true feel for what the guy's really capable of that way. So on Twitter, it's at Coach Pink 7259, and I'm always putting up stuff there.
Definitely. Well, man, Cole, I appreciate it, brother. You know, we'll do this again. Stay safe out there. Appreciate you guys joining us. Hope you enjoyed the Donovan Kaufman interview and getting in a little Auburn recruiting. Like I said, we're going to keep sprinkling around the SEC and add more and more every Wednesday. Make sure you head to the jboyshow.com, get you some merch. Also subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You know where to find us. It's the Recruiting Roundup. It's back, baby. Every Wednesday, we're getting into the thick of it. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show, and Jboy's gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with the Jboy Show.